to hear, to know, to this moment. So, just a little recap. We left off last week saying what Pare is. Pare represents this idea that God created the world and then abandoned it because he's too busy with things that are far more lofty and spiritual, and the physical world left in the hands of the constellations because he ain't got no time to deal with that. So that's what Pare represented. Now we're going to talk about what the Jewish person believes. And I'm going to read a little bit from the text. It's just, I don't know, it works, the flow is better for me. Amnon, be'emes tos v'asma ma'bil sh'chavas hinei hu am-mashpir li liris v'shamayim v'aretz b'shava l'chol Yisrael v'lechen Yisrael aminim min she'enim mazur Yisrael yoidim u'aminim v'ashkachas Yisrael v'chinas k'shachafades v'kol davar she'amat v'aretz v'asher v'mayim mitachas v'aretz. So this is a great mistake for idolaters who believe that God left the world, because really the one who dwells on high, he is watching the Hashgacha Pratis down here in this world and in the heavens equally. There is no difference between the spiritual worlds and the physical world for God. They're both lower than him. So it's not like he created a spiritual place that's actually higher. It's not really higher. In fact, there is no difference between this space and the higher space. It's just how it is, how it plays out. It plays out here physically, it plays out there in spiritual. It's all happening at the same time, if time exists. And there's really no difference. So God is running the higher worlds and the lower worlds equally. And therefore, when Moshe struck Mitzrayim and Pahari with the Makkos, what did he say? He said, "Laman teda she'ein kamvayani b'chol ha'aretz." There's no one like me in all of land. He didn't say in all of the heavens. It said all of the land, dafka, like that, down here in this world. He also said, "Chen laman nesaper shmi b'chol ha'aretz." So people will talk about my name on land. So this is to counter what Pare believed, that Hashem left this world and he doesn't operate here. He's like, no, I'm going to show you that God actually runs this world right here on this land that we exist on. Ki'im she'ein kamani b'chol ha'aretz dafka she'yim chaviyad l'shes ta'agash v'artzav v'kamay amunus v'das Yisrael she'merim v'ayim kamay she'mekabal Moshe Rabbeinu l'vashalom v'yagvura v'yedagta hayim l'shbeis l'ach Hashem hu l'kim b'shmam v'tachat. So but the opposite is true, that there's no one on this planet, there's no one on planet Earth like Hashem who can dictate or change any patterns in nature. It's all run by God. And we learned this from Moshe, who told us this beautiful pasuk that we spent 9 weeks learning about. You should know that they return to your heart. That Havaya is Elikim in heavens above and in the earth below. There's no one else. There's only God. So to explain this, what does it mean? He's going to explain this pasuk very briefly. I mean, we spent a lot of time here. He does it a little bit shorter. That Pare said, "Who's Havaya that I should listen?" And then we explain the difference. That Havaya represents this God that is infinite and doesn't have time for things. But Elikim, which represents nature, it's the same, the gematria of Elikim is Teva, which means nature. So that Pare had, he's like, for sure there's a God that runs the world here. But it's Elikim, it's not God himself, it's nature, Mother Nature. She's running the thing down here, and she's one of the ministers of God, so to speak. Although many people, when they say Mother Nature, they actually mean God alone, I think. Yeah. Like Mother Nature is God. But God, he believed in Teva, in Elikim. He knew Elikim, but he said, "Who's Havaya that I should listen to?" So the truth is, though, that Havaya is Elikim. That's what this pasuk means. Havaya is Elikim. There's no Elikim without Havaya. And Havaya is what gives life to everything. Yeah, and it comes through Elikim. So we have all these constellations, all the ministering angels that do their job to make the world run, but they get all their life force from God, and they're just like they're a tool, like a axe in the hands of the woodchopper, and they don't have any free choice. They're all run by Havaya, and that's why he says in this pasuk, "Bashamayim mimal," in heavens above, and in the earth below, Einoi, there's no one else. So what does this mean? That just like on high, even according to Pari, who agrees that on high, in the spiritual worlds, that's where God is, God himself. Like even according to you, who agrees that on heaven, it is God. The same God is also here in this world. There is no, and even he brings there that there's a minister who's called Matat, and he runs the world down here. He's nothing, he's not his own boss, he's just a tool that God uses to make this world run. But all his energy and his life force comes from Havaya, it doesn't come from himself, he has no choice. Just like an axe is a added on item to the person using it. You know, the axe doesn't cut down trees, but a person uses that tool to cut trees down. Same thing, so God uses Matat or uses the sun or whatever constellation to make the world operate. And therefore, we don't give any credit, or you don't attribute any credit to the tools that a person uses. Now he says, there's a saying that says, a craftsman without tools is no craftsman. So what does that mean? A person without a paintbrush, the artist can't draw anything. So that's only to bring out the potential of the artist onto paper. You need tools to do it. So it's not really that he's not a craftsman without his tools, but it's for him to be effective, he needs his tools. So I think that kind of means like you have potential and then you have actual. So in potential, like before the whole Seder Shashos and before God created this whole system and the 10 spheres that we spoke of, that brings us into being, we existed in potential. But to make it actual, so you use all these tools. But it's almost like the guy's art exists already. It's just in potential. It exists in his head. It's only now that he uses a tool, you see it on actual paper. But really, the art has always been there. So he's not really, the saying is not exactly, it's not 100% a craftsman. The tool is not really a craftsman, he needs his tools. Like, no, it's separate from him. It's not, he doesn't really need his tools. But to bring it into actuality, you use your tools to do it. Yeah?
Yeah, of
All
course.
correct, lovely.
No, it's like, you're not a mother without a kid, you're not...
So you do need tools.
You need each other.
Well,
Of
the
course
kid's
we
not
all-
a tool.
No, like, there isn't... Day
You're not a
without night,
baker.
there's a night without day, like...
But you're not a
they
baker
rely on
without a
each other.
flour.
Oh.
Are you?
No, you're not a baker. If you don't have...
No, a baker's a baker. When he bakes bread, he brings his potential into actuality. But it always existed. That's what I'm saying. The higher worlds, we can go in, are like, oh, we don't really exist in the higher worlds. No, everything exists. It's how it plays out. In this world, it plays out that there's you and me and we're all separate. In Atzilus, it plays out that we're all one, but the same thing is happening. There's still the 10 spheres are there in potential to birth a physical item, but it's all happening at the same time. So the baker is a baker. Whether he bakes bread or not, you know, does his potential get actualized or not actualized?
Suddenly become
Right.
not a baker.
Right.
It's not actualized.
That's the same thing. A craftsman without tools is no craftsman. A baker without bread, without flour is not a baker. Yeah, for him to actualize his potential, he's going to need the tools.
I actually think
But the point is to not give the tools the credit that, it's the bread, it's the flour that makes the bread. No, the baker uses the flour to make bread.
I think your example is great as a mother. Like women, but like women to generalize, mostly have the potential to be a mother, but it's all potential. The revelation is when you actually have that child.
Revelation, that's the word.
Wow.
Yes, to bring the from potential to revelation,
But
you use a
all
tool.
have, like, mostly have that, like,
For sure,
desire, but
for sure. Yeah,
That's so true.
it's a good example.
yeah. I mean, the proof is that you can birth a child. How could you birth a child if you're not a mother? Even before the child comes, what's that?
Not everyone has potential for your own.
Oh, so it's a bit of an edgy, like,
All right.
but like, if we're gonna generalize and like,
Yeah.
and then generalize.
If there's no defects in the system.
We're not all perfect.
Ah?
We're not all perfect.
We're all perfect for the way we are. Yeah.
With the defects.
Yeah.
We're perfect with defects.
Well, there's Yuvan B'chol Pratei V'Ar Magash, so too we'll understand. We'll understand with all the details, in physical details on all levels of inanimate, vegetative, animal, and human. Way past my bedtime. Yeah. So on all the levels of Daimim, Chaim, Tzmeach, and Davar, like rocks and animals and plants and humans, there's the same concept of all our energy comes from Havaya. So even though we see that there's so many creations, there's so many details, there's so many species and there's so many types, and each one is operating and has a different energy and a different mission, and they're all different. Where does it all come from? From the same Havaya. When he created us, he created it using all the tools and gave it, and we're all tools, and we all have the energy that channels through us, and all this energy comes from Havaya. And there's a pasuk that says, "Vata mechaya es kulam." You gave everyone life. So it says, don't read it as mechaya, you've given life, but that you've given mahava. He changes the word to mahava. You've given existence. That our whole existence is from Havaya. And like we see every day, we say that every day it's recreated from new. He says it's not just every day, it's actually every second. We just use every day because from day to day you see the actual renewance. As the sun sets and the sun rises, you're like, oh, it's a new day. But actually it's every moment we're recreated from new. And this all happens through Shem Havaya. So what does that mean? You have Elikim. So it looks like, we did a lot of this in the other Reimer. Havaya is existence. Elikim is nothing. Elikim is just the tool that makes all these separations and so many differences and so many different items that we see, and channels a specific energy so that item could exist the way it is. But the existence of the item is not from Elikim, it's from Havaya. That's the energy. Just how that energy is filtered to make creation, that comes through Elikim. But the actual existence is only from Havaya. Everything is from Havaya. There's nothing that doesn't exist without the Havaya energy. Is that clear?
Mm-hmm.
Somewhat? Again? Do we need it again? The light is shining. Whichever glass, right? Okay, let's go back to light. You shine light. If you put a green glass in front of it, the light that comes out is green. So the filter is making a difference in the light, but the filter doesn't create light. The light comes from the source. The source is Havaya. That's where everything comes from. If it's not Havaya, it doesn't exist. How does it take on different forms? Through Elikim. Very simple. So Elikim is operating and making things look the way it does. But the actual existence of anything is only from its source. The source is Havaya. Period. Is that clear? A little more?
Like Havaya is Hashem's name specifically. The two different names of Hashem.
Right, but we're saying we're not getting, it's two different names.
By the first name.
Right, but in this context, Havaya we're talking about is the God that even Pari agrees exists. But he's saying no, he left. And the Jew knows that no, there's no such thing as God leaving. That is God leaving. Anything that exists comes from Havaya. There's no ministering angels that are actually, and constellations that are making things exist or that can change anything. No, it's only all the existence is from Havaya. And yes, through the tools that we have, God, operates the world through nature, totally. But nature has no power over itself. All its power and life force comes from God alone. And to make this point even stronger, so the pasuk ends with Ein Oid, that there is no other, there is no even partnership. He's not like partnered with the constellations and like, okay, we'll do this together. There is only oneness, there's only God. And therefore, therefore God made all these wonders in the world and all these miracles to show that in this space, even here, and with all of the physicality that exists, God controls all of it. And nothing moves without the Eibishter saying it should move. Just like a tool in the hands of the craftsman. So what happens when they saw all these great miracles? They knew. No, it's etzam. They go to so when all this happened, then the Egyptians even themselves recognized that, oh, this is Etzba Lekim. First they said Etzba Lekim, this is the finger of God, right? But for a moment they recognized that the gods that they served weren't able to save them, and that this was all happening from, they said this is a finger of God, but they used it like him. No, it's interesting. He's saying that they recognize what? Yes, God's middle finger struck Egypt.
Ironic.
Yeah,
I
but
just said that very quietly.
yeah. They realize that God is the true ruler over the whole world. That their gods and all their constellations weren't able to help them. That God runs the world. So they had that revelation for a brief moment. But I'm wondering why he says they're Etzba Elikim, which would mean Elikim and not Havaya. I don't know. Okay. So then they realized that what they believed, that God abandoned the world, actually wasn't true. He's actually running the whole show. Our gods aren't able. They're silent. They're not helping. So Pare thinks that God left the world. The Jew knows the truth that everything that exists is from Havaya. And now we have the Erev Rav. What did they do? So here's where it gets interesting. The Erev Rav, they saw all these miracles and they're like, this is awesome. This is godly. This is the truth. We're going to join along. Now we're convinced, and this is where they see the Jews leaving. Let's join in along and tag along with them. So they join the party where all where the good is happening. And now when they see that Moshe is late to come down from the mountain, they seize this opportunity to say, oh, wait a second. Moshe died.
I can't eat.
Moshe died. He didn't come back from the mountain. We need halftime. Do we need a halftime break?
Back if we're doing halftime.
Okay.
It's like either now or never.
All right. So the Erev Rav, they see Moshe didn't come back from the mountain, and they say to the Jewish people, we're in trouble. Look what happened. What happened in Egypt actually wasn't God. It wasn't God that came and struck everyone. It's very simple. The two constellations had a fight. You had the constellation of the ox and the constellation of the sheep. The sheep is the Egypt's god. They serve the sheep. That's why we slaughter the sheep on the Karban Pesach, to show them that we're going to kill your God and we're still going to leave. And what happened is that over there was a fight between the ox and in the spiritual world, there was a fight between the ox and the sheep. A constellation, they're known as
Like the Taurus and like
the Taurus
right?
and the
Aries.
exactly. So
It's a ram, it's not a sheep.
a ram. Okay. Well,
No.
same family, right?
The ram is a Taurus.
No, the Taurus is an ox.
Is an ox or the
Yeah.
ram is the
No, definitely
sheep?
an ox. Taurus is
It's
an
not
ox.
a sheep. It's, yeah.
I'm a Taurus.
An Aries.
Yeah.
You're May 15th.
I have to.
Where is
she's
it?
talking about it.
Taurus the bull battled Arius the sheep. Yeah, Taurus battled Arius the sheep and won, and therefore you were able to get out of Egypt. But now we know the truth, and let's make this, and that's why they made a cow to show that this is the God that took us out of Egypt. It wasn't the God that we know as the truth.
Oh, that's why they did it?
That's where they did it. And they convinced many people. I forgot to mention, last time we spoke, I said because of this Chet Egel, the Jews were in Egypt
I
before.
still have a question.
No, that's a complete lie. It's like
Okay, I have a
amateur
question.
mistake. It's because of the Meraglim. I don't know because of the Meraglim, they didn't want to go into Israel. That's why they they're in the desert. For this, 3,000 people were killed, and then they crushed the Egel Azav. Yes, like basic chumash.
No kidding.
They crushed the Egel and they put it in water and they fed them like a saita, familiar? And whoever was guilty perished from the waters of this.
None of us knew that you made a mistake. That's how well we all knew the basic.
Yeah, it was very embarrassing. I'm sorry, but yeah.
But we still didn't figure out. Oh, we did actually.
It was only a small
But it's
portion
optional.
then.
What, that we spoke about it?
No, this one. It was only a small portion.
Right,
Then
it's
the
just-
right.
Right, right.
Down.
It was 3,000, but then they did this. Or only 3,000 people died total? I think more. I think there was more. I think it says first 3,000 people died, then they crushed it and they did. Or the Levium had to go and kill a bunch of people, something like that. Okay, it's basic text. We can totally look it up. But the point here is, I think, in bringing it back to us, that this happens all the time. When we experience something really nice, like, oh, God, God, God. And the second there's like a little bend in the story, you can always say, oh, no, it's because I got a really good deal then, and it was nothing to do with God. You can always find the constellation and find out that it fits in nature. Like, oh, it's nothing to do with a great divine providence. It's just, and that's the Erev that comes in with this, like, it's just tags along for the party. It's there. God, yeah, totally. The second there's a little thing, it seizes the opportunity to make things very natural. We don't have to really believe in God that's really running the world, because it's very simple. The Taurus beat the Arius, and now let's just serve Arius. Or whatever. Now we need to serve the Taurus. That's what's going to save me. So important to be aware of that. And know your Erev Rav, because they're just always waiting there to just, to kill everything, to make it all just very non-godly. So that was the idea. That's what they did. That's what the Erev Rav does. So now, we'll just start this, because this gets a little deep. What happened was, though, they went to the women, and the women said, we're not buying into all this bullshit. We know the truth. Only God runs the world. But the men got pulled in. Why? Okay, we're done. So the woman's soul comes from Malchus. Malchus is on the lower end of the spheres, but Malchus is also what creates everything. Everything comes through Malchus. It's the bridge between the world of animation and the world of creation happens through Malchus. And because their soul is from Malchus, they're very familiar with what it means to create, which is very godly. And where does it create it? In the lower worlds. So them coming from Malchus and living in the lower worlds, they're not fooled by that the lower worlds look separate from God because they come from Malchus, which is the place of creation.
Not they, we.
They, the women,
You.
you,
Yeah.
y'all
Ah, okay.
come from Malchus.
Pronouns.
Okay,
Yeah,
they,
wow.
right.
It's cool that you relate to them. I don't relate to them.
Who's
You're
them?
saying as a woman?
The woman.
Yeah.
So for you they're they. So for you
Yeah,
they're
totally.
they.
I guess I'm thinking about the women in the desert. But yeah,
Oh, no, but
It's all of it.
us, you.
No, not us.
What? I've got femininity too, believe it or
True.
not. I'm a full tense figurist
Yeah,
right
right,
here,
right.
including Malchus.
So
Uh,
where was their
Where's my
Sex
birth? I birth other things. What's that?
Where was their Malchus? All
Who's
men
them?
have femininity. And they still did this.
Yes, because their souls come from Dukhra. So that we could bring it back here. In us, we all have Erev, we all have this. Sometimes you find a woman who loses her faith. Where'd that come from? She should always be just like the men lost it there. You have women, you have men that didn't find their faith there, and you have women that don't find their faith even now. Because you could, where are you living? And what energy are you, where you at that day? Sometimes you're there, sometimes you get pulled to the dark side, I guess.
Like today, I got pulled to the dark side.
The Arab Rab is like,
Perfect agrees with it, actually.
do they
I have to text to apologize. I kind of feel bad. Like, waiting
Oh
about
man, what happened now? I'm curious.
it.
Bamish?
does Arab Rab represent confusion?
There is not confusion. The Erev is sly. They don't. They
Sly.
want. They don't really believe. They don't really believe in God. When God is good, they believe in Him. When He's not good, they just blame it on nature. You know that place? When everything's great, like Baruch Hashem, everything's great. When it's not great, I don't like. What changed? Is this not God? Or the opposite? Or really?
Yeah.
What?
When nothing's going good, that's when it's like, okay.
Either way,
God.
or it's really bad. Oh, I need
Right,
God.
yeah,
Like
either way.
where's God? Like the bad, the good, the neutral. Like it's all the same, coming from the same place. There's like,
Big time.
yeah.
I think what's interesting, what we were saying before about the energies, I think like as a woman, it's easier for us to tap into that Malchus, understand like even like in the no man, as things are getting created or changing, we don't lose it as quick because it's just, of course we can choose which energy we want from, but we're more naturally inclined that way if we're aligned with ourselves, right? If we're aligned with our being. Whereas for a man, it's possibly much more easier to, fall into the doubt much quicker and like, I'm going to do it myself and whatever, all the
Right.
machiness.
Yeah.
But they can choose to also align with that feminine energy because they do have it. Again, it depends if they're aligned with themselves or not.
In if we go back to the other mimer, in the there's so many places where there was male and there's female. In Atzilus, you have the spheres, right? The first 6 are male. The last one is Malchus is female. You come out into this space. The woman is Malchus and is the woman is female, obviously, and the man is male. I lost my train of thought there.
We just have all the feminine.
But there's always going to be that, within your own system, there's your male parts and your female parts, and it's all the same. So, yeah.
So there were men there that were alive, and they said, no, this is not right.
Right. I think it's
Most
not
of
shit
them,
maybe.
right, most of them. It was a very small portion.
Yeah.
There were people from
Yeah.
that.
What would an aligned male do in this situation?
What most of them did.
Well, most of them.
No, this is what I was saying.
What
In
is
the
the
relationship with
animal?
God,
It's
all
the
humans
animal.
are female,
Oh.
or at least all Jewish people
We
were
heard
female, and and
There
God
was
is the
a
male.
single
So
lady that gave jewelry?
we're gonna say no, there wasn't.
That's
Well, it says that nobody gave. I don't know if anyone did. But it's not about the details. This is the concept of that the femininity comes from Malchus. And over there, it knows God very intimately because it does the same thing that God does. It creates. The male is the potential for creation, and so it gets caught on like, oh, God is very lofty. That's why the man didn't he believes he could get fooled in thinking that actually God is in the higher worlds. He doesn't deal with the lower worlds because that's where he's from. He's from the higher worlds. It's his disadvantage that in this space he doesn't see God. He only sees God as being this idea. There's no practical application. The female takes God and makes it practical. It's all practical. It's real. Like it's creation. It produces. The man is just idealistic. So when there's this opportunity to say, oh, God is very far away and it's this great genius spiritual idea, he's all for it. Oh, God is physical running this space? Maybe not, because he's not practical. He's just idealistic. Right? So that's why the men, coming from this place of Zah, from the higher spheres, were able to get pulled into this concept that maybe God actually doesn't exist here, and it's just the constellations are really running this space because God is too lofty. The women understand that God runs everything. It creates any creation is all from God. They don't get pulled into, oh, maybe there's another creation that's running the space here. No, they know of it very personally.
So, do I ask something or not yet?
Hold on. Thanks for asking. And therefore, the idolaters, they pray to the sun. The secular calendar runs around the sun. Is a lunar, not a lunar, a solar year. We have a lunar year, because that's what they're trying to represent. The sun is higher than the moon, so they think, who is God? He's high. He's the sun. He's much higher. He's the highest thing. He's the sun.
They pray to the sun.
Right, showing that it's higher.
The holy waters, I mean.
Right. The Jews say no. God is represented in the moon, because the moon represents is lower, and even in this lower space, in the physical space, it's still God. We don't pick the higher things. That's God, but the lower thing isn't. No, the lower thing is God. Yeah.
It's so interesting because the sun is kind of like the primary light in the world.
The sun is. That's why they worship it, and that's why it's like the moon is just a reflection. We're saying no, the reflection of the moon is also God. It doesn't, like, everything's God. We don't get confused by saying, no, the big light, that's where God is. Very high, very big. But the small thing, no, the small, the big, it's all God equally.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah, really, yeah.
And therefore the women who are compared to the moon, because they cycle like the moon, they go through their purity and impurity every 30 days, just like the moon, because of this faith that they have, and they're compared to the moon, they were given the Yom Tov of Rosh Chodesh, which is the moon, which was Yom Tov celebrated.
The moon is impure?
No, it wanes and
No,
what?
like a cycle.
The cycle
It's
of a
the
woman.
I know.
It's hormonal.
Right.
Super hormonal. Really hormonal. And that's
I thought it was like also based off the
I
planets.
love a moon. What?
Like I thought it was also based on Mars,
So the sun is the
Mercury retrograde.
I don't know. Mercury retrograde is in retrograde every day.
It's not. Yeah.
Every day.
Right.
Whatever. But
Yeah.
I love the moon.
And that is how he ends. And I still have a question. What's your question? I had a question though. What's on?
I have a question that doesn't come in. It's just like struck me that. So what happened to those people that sinned? And Hashem came and killed them. Like, you couldn't find a different way to take care of them and teach them a lesson instead of killing them. Same thing happened by the like when you said it wasn't whatever, it was Hashem. I right away thought of the war, the Holocaust, and like, so these 6 million people, I always have such a anger towards the Nazis, but really it was Hashem. I sort of knew that logically, but now with this story, it sort of clicked to me, like, so this is Hashem's recipe? Like, someone doesn't behave, kill, pow! Where's my gun?
But then also at the same time,
No.
nowadays when
How
someone
can
dies,
I-
they're said, oh, they were the best person, the best people die. Like they said they can die.
That right. That
Now they
that's
say the
what
opposite.
contradiction.
So, right.
I love the commentary because it's
That's why
I don't know.
that